Welcome back, one and all, to the EU Challenger Series qualifier here at the ESL UK studios in Leicester. We're going to be getting into our third game of the night now. We've already had two exciting games to kick off, to be honest. It's been action-packed so far, as we had Fnatic Academy winning out their first game, and then we've had TLR managing to tie them in the opposite group. But now we're going to be jumping into the third game. Joining me once again are going to be Sona and X-Scoundrel. I mean, you guys cast that last game. Let's just have a super quick recap. I mean, what were your final thoughts on it?
I mean, I'll let you start, Sona, because if I start my final thoughts, I think they'll go on for about 15 minutes. It was an insane game.
It was. I think my real main thought of it was that TLR were actually able to enact what they wanted to do from Champ Select. I was worried that because they're quite a new team, because they haven't really had that much time to practice together, they might fall flat when it comes to actually playing the macro game well. But they played it well, and they were able to win out the game.
Just going to give a little fist bump to my boy Munchables for the prediction. We are 1-0 up right now.
UK scene boys.
But I guess the final thoughts is exactly that, what Sona said. They had this game plan. They got those cogs working together. You know, we've used that analogy so much, but it really was that sort of everything needed to be in place. But luckily for them, they got it all working and rolling in the nice plan. And you know, like I said, it snowballed, and it snowballed like crazy. And there was nothing that Team Alien Tech could do to deal with the pressure of consistently being unable to choose when they wanted to fight.
Yeah, and we are already into Champion Select. This game going to be Bobaski versus Nerv. Now, Bobaski, a team from the Polish regional qualifier. Nerv, obviously, in the CS last season, where they placed 6th. So basically up for relegation. They're looking to renew their spot. Now, I think on paper, the number one thing about this matchup is theoretically David versus Goliath, right? You've got this Polish regional team that not many people really know a huge amount about, up against Team Nerv, who were in the Challenger Series. However, Nerv, completely new roster now, so we're expecting a completely different squad to come on through. But let's get into Champions Select. Caitlyn, Katarina and Zyra banned from Bobaski. We've got Rise, Camille and Thresh banned from Nerv, and then already a Rengar locked in.
Already Rengar locked in here. Lee Sin and everything was open. They're going to choose to prioritize that over anything else. Interestingly, you'll probably see as this sort of tournament goes on, the majority of first picks blue side are going to be either Karma or a jungler, and then you might see that transition to top or mid when something realistically heavy is open.
Yeah, and interestingly, we've got the Rengar lock-in, despite the fact that Rek'Sai and Lee Sin are
exactly,
open.
yeah.
I think Lee Sin is what I would prioritize over the Rengar, but as we said earlier, you know, a lot of high-level teams are prioritizing that Rengar. Very good in a lot of the scrims he's been having, and the empowered Battle Roar, when you can get out of CC, does mean he almost plays the same role as a Nocturne in the gank potential.
So, we're seeing. I know. I was just about to make the point that Rengar should function a little bit like we saw the Nocturne from Team Larson function in the previous game, and with those picks that we've just seen come in, it kind of solidifies the point. You know, that's kind of what you're looking at in that bot lane with the Ashe again. You now have Nocturne aiming to, Rengar aiming to function like, I guess, how the Nocturne was functioning in the previous game. Just post 6, consistently pressuring these lanes with heavy CC, with Nautilus and Ashe, huge amounts of CC that you're bringing to the lane.
And you've got Poppy and Karma as well picked up by Nerv. So we've got a lot of the power picks already locked in at this stage, but mid lane hasn't been touched. Syndra's still available. I almost want to say, like, Orianna could be a huge pickup for Bobaski, especially with that Rengar as well. It's such a powerful combo that we've seen 1,000 times before, but Nerv potentially looking towards that Syndra. To be honest, it's almost surprising to me Syndra hasn't been higher priority in this draft, considering the strength of it in the last 2 games.
I think mid lane still has quite a lot of diversity. That means you don't have to pick up the Syndra first. As you said, Orianna works relatively well at the moment. Rise is still pretty strong as well, so there's enough there that you don't have to prioritize Syndra. The reason lots of people were picking her first was because she stood by herself as a tier S mid laner, whereas now the main point of contestation in pick and ban is that jungle position where you see Lee Sin and Rengar and Rek'Sai sort of up there at the top.
You touched on it really nicely there, Sona. Originally, when we saw Syndra prioritize so heavily, she was so far head and shoulders above the competition that it was almost silly not to. And actually, because the other roles didn't have that kind of pick, a lot of role picks were very balanced across the board, that Syndra was often prioritized so early on, or even just banned out entirely. Now you see it come through a little bit lower priority because things like the jungler, things like the support, and even in some cases like you see here, the top laner can be far more impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at the Nerv composition right now, you already see like a multitude of power picks, right? The Ezreal, probably the only one that's not, I wouldn't consider it necessarily a power pick, but just a very strong AD carry. I don't think there are that many AD carries right now that are tier above the rest of them. I think there's a fair few that are available. Ziggs, yeah. I think there's a lot available though, but I'm interested to see what their final pick will be. Over on the other side, the last 2 picks have been locked in. It's Orianna and Braum. Now, we haven't really seen that much Braum recently. A little bit surprised to see that one.
Yeah, Braum's a really interesting one. I think it's going to work a little bit similarly to how you saw Hado function on the Malzahar, except for it's not going to be quite as point and click, not quite as easily locked down. What it does do is you can defend against wave push, you can block the Karma, you can block the Ezreal looking to push those caster minions early on with the Unbreakable, and also gives you that protection for Ashe, a little bit more of a team fight impact in terms of disruption. Braum still has his place, and he actually works very well with Ashe in that regard too, because it's easier to get the concussive blows procced, when you have slows coming from either direction in that bot lane.
Oh, definitely, and it's almost the same as you say as the Malzahar. It just allows you to continue that CC chain going on. If you land either the arrow, if you land the bowler coming out from the Rengar, immediately you get the concussive blows on, you get the stun, put down the Glacial Fissure as well, you got a knock up. It's so hard for anyone to escape from that. So what I think Mystiques is showing us here is that perhaps he doesn't play that much Malzahar, or perhaps he hasn't tried it, or perhaps he's just more comfortable on the Braum, which is why you pick that over the Malzahar.
And now we've got the quest activated as well. Rengar against Kha'Zix in the jungle. First Kha'Zix we've seen, but it's something I think we've been expecting to come in. He's been, in the meta, he wasn't quite, Lee and Rek'Sai, but he's definitely up there, that's safe to say. And I'm curious to see how that matchup's going to pan out. It's kind of an age-old matchup that never really was in the meta consistently, but here we go. Let's take a look at the 2 lineups, because we didn't really get much chance to talk through them beforehand. Who are your players to watch, guys? Excalibur, we'll start with you.
Obviously, he's just cast. A lot of people have seen him previously. He's one of those names that will stand out. Keep an eye on him, on Nerv. He's an incredibly gifted player. Sona, what about you?
Just going to Nerv, I'll talk about Bobaski in a second. Going to Nerv, I'm actually really interested to see how Suno plays, because he played for SK in 2016, and he's actually replacing Caps, who has of course gone to Fnatic's LCS team. So a lot of what Nerv did in Challenger Series last split was based around Caps and how well Caps was playing. I'd really like to see how Suno performs in that role now. Bobaski, Team Refuse is what they were known as before. They have given up the, Bobaski is now the name. And they came from Poland, which is one of the regions that isn't quite as competitive, perhaps, as, say, ERL Germany or ERL in the UK.
Don't tell Roccat that.
Well, yeah. Roccat is kind of a standalone team who have played incredibly well. I think the Polish regional composition perhaps doesn't set up for Challenger Series quite as well.
Yeah, I guess that's interesting. I actually have always, for some reason, this is going to sound funny, I've always considered it complete opposite. I've always felt that Poland had a really vibrant esports scene. You see a lot of good other game, players come out of that region for esports across multiple titles, as well as I've always felt that Poland's always had a pretty vibrant League of Legends scene. But, like you said, you see very few professional teams come out of Poland.
That's what I'm saying. The esports scene there is amazing. Some of the stuff that they do out there is incredible. But the actual
IEM World Finals happening in Katowice in Poland.
The actual competitive level of their solely Polish teams doesn't tend to match up with some of the competitive levels we see from other regional competitions.
That's interesting. I mean, I guess we should touch on these compositions slightly before I hand over to you two lovely gentlemen who'll be taking over this game. So we're looking at this Orianna composition with the Rengar. Rengar probably function a little bit similar to what we saw Nocturne do. You've got good CC in the top lane, good CC in the bot lane. Post 6, you can look to make an impact as much as physically possible in those lanes. As you get later into the game, Orianna comes in, Rengar functions as this ball delivery system. You also have the Nautilus to do the same for you, and you do have an element of really good team fight. If you can land that Braum CC, you can get the Orianna going with the shockwaves. You've got a nice composition that is a little bit different to Team Larson. And Team Larson relied on their ability to make picks off that kind of solo queue-esque point-and-click ultimate. This time round, it transitions. The composition transitions from the ability to impact lanes to a composition that actually has a viable team fight.
I think that's it. They've kind of sacrificed a super strong pick and transitioned it more into, as you say, more of a team fight composition that, should they not be the ones on the accelerator pedal, if they're not the ones actually starting the fight, they still will be able to fight back in that scenario.
I'm a little bit shocked by the top lane matchups as well. Poppy into Nautilus is something we see quite a lot of the time, but I'm shocked because we haven't seen it in the last couple of games. We've seen a bit more eclectic picks, perhaps something that people are a bit more comfortable on. With top lane being a bit more of an island this game, because you're playing tank into tank, I expect to see a lot more focus around gaining mid lane control and gaining vision control around mid river.
I think if there's going to be one issue for Nerv, it might be Kha'Zix. Kha'Zix is a pick that categorically does need to get that gold input to start getting to a point where he's going to be single-handedly wiping people off the face of the Rift.
I'm going to cut you off there because the game is about to start. I need your predictions, gentlemen. Sona, we'll start with you.
I'm going to give it to Nerv. I think they have a stronger lineup, and I really think Suno is going to perform in mid lane.
Really quickly, Excandra.
I love the Bobaski composition, but I'm going to go for Nerv as well.
I am also going to go for Nerv on this one. I think their challenger experience will be huge, and I think with their new roster, it should be fantastic. But I believe we are just about ready to get into the game. So make sure you guys at home as well are tracking our predictions. Let us know who is winning and who is losing. And we'll see at the end of the week who is the champion of
We have 5 days of this, so hopefully I can come back from my bad first prediction.
Yeah, but...
just because you 1-0 down now, Sona, doesn't mean that you're going to be 16-0 down.
I'm still taking my Fnatic prediction from the first game as 1-1.
I don't think it wasn't official, wasn't on stream, doesn't count.
Yeah, it wasn't official, unfortunately. So 1-0 to myself and Excandrel, but I believe we're just about ready to jump into this first game. If what I was told earlier is correct, we should be able to kick this one off. And I think this one could be a little bit of a bloodbath.
I'm looking forward to it. I think, especially with Bobaski's style, when they were Team Refuge, they're a lot about skirmishing, they're a lot about getting those fights in. I wouldn't be surprised if they are going for that more aggressive playstyle, even with a composition that kind of rounds itself out as a more utility/teamfight based comp. I expect to see a lot of fights.
Nerv doesn't have any super dominant lanes either. Syndra, although top tier, Orianna deals with Syndra. It is a survivable lane. I think that's what most Orianna players into Syndra's would say. It's survivable. I know that my impact is not to dominate lane. Once I can push the lane out, it becomes pretty even, and then I'll get towards a team fight situation where I become super useful, if not, arguably maybe more useful than Syndra in some respects. Ezreal, Karma, they're not going to be completely dominant, but on that note, I'm going to hand over to these two beautiful gentlemen. Take it away, Munch and Sona.
Thank you very much, and I've got to say, it's been a long time since we've had a cast together, Sona. I believe, it's got to be 2 years?
Yeah, at least 2 years since we last cast together. But I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Certainly should be a good one. And it's going to be, I think, a bit of an interesting game to have a go at as well, with a team like Nerv, who have come from the challenger scene. They placed 6th last season. They didn't actually manage to get themselves a win last. They got 2 draws in the Challenger Series, and they got 3 losses. So not a phenomenal performance from them, and 6th place. But since the roster swaps and things, people have been saying that they are looking very strong. Bobaski on the other side, much more untested in terms of the lineup. You've got a lot more to kind of imagine for these guys and where they're going to go with this one. Certainly, I mean, let's talk about the compositions. Where do you feel... Who do you think won the draft overall?
It's a really difficult one to call in winning or losing the draft. I think if I were Nerv, if they'd taken Lee Sin, I think I would have said that they'd won the draft. Syndra, Lee Sin, very strong. Karma and Poppy as well, top tier picks alongside the Ezreal, who can play towards that late game. The Kha'Zix pick feels very much like Memento is much more comfortable on that champ rather than it's a pick they think fits better in this. Lee Sin was available through pick and ban as well. If you look at Bobaski, they have a strong lineup as well, and it's something that Scoundrel was harking on about in the pick and ban is their ability to transition from this early game pressure, this early game crowd control lock that they have into a more team fight orientated composition later on.
So far, very standard starts from both of these teams, Memento and Tanky, in that Kha'Zix-Rengar matchup. Curious to see who's going to win the quest, who's going to get that first kill, but pretty aggressive trades coming out in this bottom lane. Bobaski not really getting the better of it, though, as AD carries trading fairly evenly, but Mystique's been chunked out a bit there by Kaz.
That's something that it's partly experience you can see playing it for Nerv here. They've got that little bit of experience advantage just generally playing on a big stage. Pookie Style and Mystique's lose out slightly in the wave push game just because Karma can outpush an Ashe early on with her Mantrid in a flame, and Braum doesn't really allow you to push the wave at all. He's not like a Malzahar who does give you that little bit of extra impetus, or a Zyra as well. Memento taking his blue now, perhaps looking towards this mid lane. However, you see how far Suno's pushed up. Matislaw is not an easy gank. Actually looks like he might be trying to take this Rengar out.
Memento, he can see that quest on the top right of his screen, and he is looking to fulfill it. He wants that extra XP.
We'll spot him out,
be able to get it, though. Red buff.
Yeah, not quite going to be able to do it.
That's what happens when two play by players
going for it. I don't think the quest activates until both players are level 16.
Oh, really?
I might be wrong, but I've hardly ever played
as the game started.
It might be.
I can't say I've played this matchup
I'm sure someone
a lot.
will tell us. I'm sure Xscoundrel will look it up and give
Tweet
us
at us with
knowledge.
the hashtag EUCS to tell us about that quest. But so far, very standard start. Memento not able to get that kill, but will get a bit of counter jungling in.
He will, and we did see Tanky escaping, didn't have to burn any summoners, which is great for him. We'll be power farming up towards that level 6. When you have a Rengar on your team, your main objective, especially as mid and top lane, is just not to die before level 6. If you can keep yourself safe, you can stop that Kha'Zix from getting rolling, you can stop your enemy laner from getting rolling, then you can see the Rengar actually impacting the game with ganks. Ruin and Nerv in general here, you can see, have a very specific game plan of dealing with the Rengar. We saw Memento going for the early aggression in the jungle, and then Ruin steps forward, gets the Scryer's Bloom because he knows that Tanky's going to be on that side of the jungle. They want to keep track of this Rengar as much as possible through the early levels.
Yeah, absolutely, because, you know, early on, if you keep track of him, he's really not a threat, but if you allow him to get that level 6, at that point he becomes deadly, and we'll see how well he's going to be able to impact this game. Ruin taking a good chunk of damage here from Unknown up in the top lane. Obviously, in this matchup, you're not going to see too many fights. It's a bit of a wet noodle battle, but we'll see whether or not these guys can manage to get kills onto each other later on.
So in pick and ban, something I was talking about was the control of mid-river, especially when you're playing 2 tanks in the top lane. And it is vital in 624 that you get those control wards around the mid lane, because as you can see, both these mid laners have the ability to push up the wave pretty quickly. Syndra perhaps has a slight advantage over Orianna in the early levels, just because she can, you know, spam at her spears a little bit more. But if you do that, you then allow your mid laner to rotate down towards bottom lane, and you gain this area of the unknown for the enemy team. And I'm not talking about Bobaski's top laner. You gain an area where they don't know where your mid laner is. They don't know where your jungler is. And it means that the entire enemy team has to play incredibly cautiously around you. And it allows you to set up ganks in the bottom lane, go for those 4-man dives, go for those big plays.
And Tanky now is going to be over in this red side jungle, trying to take control of Nerv's jungle and trying to put Memento slightly behind. But so far, he's not been doing too well at that because he is 11 CS down and doesn't find a camp there, can't get a gromp for himself, and that means that he has to go back, and he's wasted a lot of time trying to get that counter jungle through. So far, things are looking up for Memento. He's also a level ahead, so he's feeling pretty good right now.
He is a slight experience advantage over Tanky, who's, you know, he's about 10 CS down or so. A lot of that, you know, is in Krugs. If you take those Krugs, you get a big, sort of a pseudo CS advantage without really realizing it. Only getting 10 gold for those last 6 anyway means that you're not getting a huge advantage, but can be a little bit of something. Unknown trading into Ruin here, going in quite aggressively.
And that's one of the things with the Corrupting Potion as well. Unknown, when he has his shield up on top of a Corrupting Potion, he'll get a double dot on his target for every single auto attack. So very, very important that when that is ticking, when he's using his sustain, he's continuing to use those engages, continuing to extend that duel to make sure he gets the most value out of his gold. But I want to talk again about Champion Select, some of the topics we were discussing there. I mean, Rengar was the very first pick of Champion Select. So far, I would argue that it's actually been working out purely because Memento hasn't been able to get anything going.
I think there's an argument when you look at it. You say, you know, Memento was ahead in CS, he got that level advantage, he was doing a bit of more aggressive play in the early game, but as you say, the Rengar isn't really built for the early game. He's built to get to that level 6 and then start looking for the ganks, looking for that empowered bowler, looking for the stun lock, looking to be able to catch people out. Memento hasn't been able to use Kha'Zix's early advantages in those skirmishes in the jungle, the 1v1 advantage that Kha'Zix has to shut down Tanky at all. And Tanky will be hitting level 6. Well, he's just hit it. So now he's going to start looking for these ganks, probably focusing around mid lane to start off, maybe going down towards bot as well, but bot is quite hard to gank with the Ezreal being able to Arcane Shift away, and with Kaz being able to just pop that Mantrid Inspire and get himself away.
Do you know, I wouldn't be too surprised to see Tanky head up towards this top lane when you consider how aggressive these two top laners have been. Unknown has been winning out those trades all in all, and if they can get to a situation where Unknown and Ruin are both half HP, then Tanky uses his ultimate to get in with a depth charge on top of all his own CC. Should be fairly simple.
I agree with you, apart from the fact that Poppy has steadfast presence, which means that the Rengar will find it a lot more difficult actually to get on towards her. If you can lock her up,
if you can flash,
yeah, if you can lock her up, if you can flash, you can catch her out. And because there is as much crowd control in that top lane as you say, there is a possibility that you look up towards top lane and try and cut that Poppy down at the knees. But it's a very difficult cut to make because Poppy's knees are so close to the ground and she's so difficult to get.
Certainly, she is very close to the ground. As Memento going to be donating his blue buff here over towards Suno. So that's going to be a nice little pickup. And obviously, blue buff been changed since last season now. Shorter duration and more mana regeneration. That's the key thing that you get from blue buff now. So Suno will be able to mash out those Qs.
No longer get any extra ability power off it as well, which is quite vital in some of these lanes. However, both the mid laners having that blue buff just means it's going to be a push war once again. Neither of them will really win it out. You've got Forbidden Idol versus Lost Chapter, versus Lost Chapter. It's not really the biggest advantage for either of them, which is why I start to think that we're going to see these mid lane ganks now that you've got both of the ultimates available for Memento and Tanky. Mid lane seems to be the place to be.
Yeah, both junglers hovering around this dragon area though for now. Memento looking to get that Rift Scuttler for himself, and Tanky in the meantime, he's around bottom lane, he's in that tri-bush, but he is getting pinged out. I think they're aware of his position, and that is going to mean that I don't think he'll be able to get anything. He must have cleared a ward with that control ward or something. Actually, I can't see a dead ward there or anything, but either way, certainly looking for something. Not going to find it in the bottom lane right now.
This is the power of the unknown that we were talking about, you know. They're able to just get that Nautilus pushing onto the Poppy, half healthing. Poppy's doing a good job of farming up, you know. Ruin is actually keeping even on that CS score. And when Ruin starts to get towards 2 items, you know, Sunfire Cape, Spirit Visage is probably what you're looking at. It will be a lot more difficult for Unknown to take those effective trades because you just get so much shielding off that buckler. It makes it almost impossible for you actually to land any damage. Looking across the gold, it looks pretty even for both these two teams at the moment. Kind of what you'd expect. There's only a 300 gold disadvantage, and most of that's going to come in the bottom and the top lane where it's 5 or 6 CS here or there.
Ruin is in a little bit of trouble right now. Unknown does have his depth charge available, but doesn't want to commit to that one. But so far, we're consistently seeing Ruin lose out in these trades, and he's struggling to really get any damage to stick to Unknown in these fights. And now Memento actually heading up towards this top lane, might well jump over towards top, but actually not going to go for that one, as Matislaw just going to head back to base himself. And across the board, this has been a very, very slow-paced game so far. Nothing too... I mean, I feel like I missold this when we were in Champion Select, and I said I think it's going to be a bloodbath. Absolutely not so far.
But it could still evolve into one. We still have hope, Munch. I think you can see that both the junglers are looking for those ganks. A lot of it is just counter-jungling at the moment, trying to deny as much as you can. Tanky will spot out Memento here. Probably try and trade into him because Memento will get taken low. Has to flash away, jumps across the wall, does go invisible. Suno came in with a teleport as well, just to, with a ghost as well, just to try and stop it. So they were able to deny the kill on towards Memento, but Memento now realizing he can't trade into this Rengar anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's an astute decision from him, that's just not a matchup that he's going to get involved in at this stage. Maybe later on. Nice flash coming out from Suno there. Matislaw trying to get the shockwave, but will not quite land it. And he's doing very well in this lane. You know, Matislaw, beyond 6, if he gets low on HP, he has to absolutely respect the ultimate from Syndra, but so long as he can stay relatively healthy, he's going to have a fantastic time.
It's part of what we talked about, though, as well. You know, Orianna into Syndra is a relatively good matchup for the Orianna because you command protect yourself, you just shield through any dark spheres that might connect. You have empowered auto attacks to trade back into the Syndra as well, so it makes it quite difficult for the Syndra actually to keep damage to stick on you. Alongside that as well, I wonder slightly about the nerves of Suno, because this is the first time he's really shown up on the Nerv lineup as well, and he has to try and synergize with his team in a position as well, which is a lot more important in this patch than it was previously. I mean, mid lane's always been a vital position for any team, but mid lane in 624 is incredibly impactful to the team. Memento was able to blast cone past this vision, but just dodges that out there as well, so might actually be able to get a gank off.
He did walk past the ward the first time, but if he heads towards this mid lane, maybe could find something. I think just looking for more vision, though, as the teams do continue to just farm out, at least for now. And So far, neither team, even in CS, taking a significant lead on any of the lanes. You know, we've got a 10 CS lead in the top lane right now in favor of Ruin, but it's not going to be the end of the world right now, and it's only 100 gold difference between the two teams. But now, Memento, we saw him surrounding the Dragon area in wards earlier on, and now he's going to be able to reap the benefits of that vision control. In fact, Suno heading back to base at this time as well. I feel like
that was very
not
brave.
The greatest back timings from these two teams, but they get away with it regardless.
It was really brave, actually, from Nerv in general. Cast and Memento took it, yes, and they do get the first Drake, but Ezreal had backed, so they didn't have their AD carry. As you say, Suno was backing in the middle of it as well. And actually, Matislaw walked across. All they had to do was place a ward over that Baron pit, and Memento would have fallen, Cast probably would have gone down as well, or at least they'd be burning summoners to try and get out of it. So that was very brave from Nerv. They did a good job of denying the vision to start it off, but I feel that the Dragon Call was perhaps a little bit too early.
Yeah, well, maybe, but I mean, I don't want to criticize it too much because obviously they did get the Dragon. So, you know, if those who, what is it, the bold are favored, or I can't remember the phrase now, but fortune favors the bold. There we go. Got it in the end. Not that misfortune's even been picked in this game, but it's going to be a red buff as well, taken away here. So this duo of Cast and Memento just happily walking through any part of the BOB jungle, but here's the teleport.
This is what we were talking about. You deny vision in the bottom side, and then you go for the dive in the bot lane. Pookie style takes a bit of damage. Here's the teleport. Ruin is charging up the hammer, knocks back one. Mystiques is the target. Unbreakable comes out. Glacial Fissure knocks them up. Mystique's still alive. Exhaust onto Memento. He's locked down with the depth charge. There's the arrow as well. And Bobaski take first and second blood. It's a double for Matislaw. Tanky coming in with the On the Hunt will chase on towards the Chew, misses the E and won't quite get the stun, but Bobaski turn around a dive.
Fantastic play from Mystiques there. Survived so long in that bottom lane with 3 people focusing him down, and then got an awesome exhaust onto Memento just as he would have been in trouble. Manages to protect himself from the damage, and then all of their CC comes through. The concussive blows procs followed by the crystalline arrow. They lock up Memento, get that first kill, then Suno is the next one to fall. Fantastic play, and they are rewarded with the first tower of the game.
As soon as I saw the charge up on the Keeper's Verdict, I thought they had it, because all you have to do is hit away one man, and that man is Unknown, but they couldn't connect onto him, which meant that Unknown was there for the CC chain underneath the tower, and it meant that they weren't able to get that first kill, which would have got the ball rolling for them. Nerv set it up well. They denied vision in the river, they got that ward behind, they denied vision in the red side jungle, they got the teleport in, but Bobaski reacted absolutely perfectly, and perhaps Nerv didn't quite pull the trigger as quickly as they could have done.
Perhaps you might be right, and I've got to say, Bobaski, excellent reactions. Like, they read the situation, and you saw people were starting towards their blue buff, right? All the way at the wrong side of the map, but the split second things start to go down. The split second that teleport starts to get channeled, immediately you see Bobaski react and move down, and they managed to get down in time to change things up. And now we've seen the AD carries go up towards this top lane. Mystiques, though, caught out once again. This time, we'll see if he can actually survive. Shockwave goes on to Cast, but that's not quite enough to turn things around. Memento, though, will fall. Mystiques survives once again. Another double kill comes through from Matislaw. Make that a triple. Phenomenal play from Bobaski.
Oh, baby, a triple. And this is what the Braum gives you in the team. Concussive blows, got the stun. Stop Memento. The exhaust came down as well. Stop Memento being able to get the kill on towards Mystiques. He didn't even have Glacial Fissure for that fight. Just great play by Matislaw as well. The Shockwave only really connected on the back line, but it was enough to get him the triple and to be able to push this turret as well. They've got first tower, they've got 5 kills, they've got the gold advantage, and Bobaski are showing up this game.
Yeah, I mean, we're being proven wrong, right? We said, you know, this regional team, maybe they don't have what it takes to match up against an ex-challenger team. I mean, or potentially still challenger, I think it's fair to say at this point. Or it's not fair to say. What am I even saying? I'm going to try this again. Bobaski, we said, was going to be the David in this David versus Goliath story, but they are absolutely having a whale of a time on the Rift right now. 3,000 gold lead. They've got a tower to talk about. They've nearly got the mid lane tower as well. The only advantage that Nerv have right now is that they are 1 dragon up.
It's not a huge advantage at all. I think it was a Cloud Drake that went down as well, yeah. So not a huge advantage. They have been able to get vision control, but it really hasn't given them too much thus far. And you have to feel as well, even like we talk about the Rengar being impactful in fights, hasn't really done a huge amount yet. It's all been Matislaw on that Orianna and Mystique's making huge plays. When Tanky did come down towards that bottom lane, he wasn't able to do too much, but now almost 2 turrets in favor of Bobaski. They've almost got that mid lane as well. They got first tower in the bot lane. Bobaski are showing up in style.
Yeah, and one super important thing that we've not really mentioned yet is, you know, Matislaw, so far he has had every single kill this game, which means when you look at him compared to Suno, he is a full item ahead. Mystique's once again going to be able to get away from a fight there, but when you put, I mean, the 1v1 is never ever going to happen at this point if Suno has any common sense. That just is not going to be a scenario. However, in these team fights, Matislaw has to be shut down. Here we go, though, as On the Hunt will be procced, but nothing gonna come of it.
It's the risk as well with control wards and stuff being so cheap. You know, he just wasn't able to get there too quickly. They got good vision control of the river, so they can really spot out the Rengar as he goes in. Bobaski not quite able to deny that vision as much as they would like. They really need to be looking at getting a few more sweepers, maybe picking one up on Tanky just to shut that down. I'd say around now is probably the point at which you want to be switching out that warding totem for a sweeper, just to try and deny any ability for Nerv to keep that river warded up, because they are in the position they can do that. Matislaw plus anyone on their team can force out at least 2 members of Nerv, if not 3, just because, as you say, of how big Matislaw is with this Abyssal Scepter and with this Morella.
And it seems very likely that it would be Matislaw and Mystiques. These guys have been basically a duo so far throughout this game. We've seen them consistently working together, and you can see reflected in their scores, both of them 100% kill participation so far. Memento now setting up in this river. Obviously, Dragon has just spawned. It's going to be a second Cloud Drake. Memento managing to dodge away from the Rift Scuttle of Vision. But pings are going down all the way across, and I think that Bobaski are well aware. And to be honest, wise decision there from Nerv to back away, because you do not want to go into a Dragon Pit when the enemy Orianna is 5-0.
No, you don't. Here comes the arrow. Suno has to flash it. This would be the tower going down. Bobaski should have been able to pick up their second turret. Ruin did come in from the side just to delay them slightly. I feel perhaps Bobaski were just a bit nervous, a bit hesitant there. Just needed one more auto attack really from either Matislaw or Pookie Style to take that one down.
But again, this is something we talked about in the very first game of the day. We saw Fnatic being very patient in taking the 3rd inhibitor tower. No need to rush. Bobaski right now, there's no ridiculous rush for them to take that mid lane tower. They're already ahead in gold. So long as they play things safe and they do continue to take objectives, it doesn't necessarily matter that they get it that second. Cass heading up towards this top lane, just making sure I choose fine, clearing out some vision here. But to be honest, off the back of that, I would have liked to see Bobaski look towards the Dragon, because realistically, there is no scenario where Nerv just wins a straight up team fight at this point in the game.
I think Bobaski just don't really care about a Cloud Drake, in all honesty. If it was an Infernal or a Mountain or even an Ocean, perhaps they'd fight about it, but a Cloud Drake really doesn't give them too much. They're not really having to make quick rotations around the map at the moment. I feel Bobaski, like you said, that not taking the mid tower isn't going to cost them too much. There is a point in this game where Nerv just have a better composition. You know, you've got the Poppy, you've got Syndra, Ezreal, Karma, who are all incredibly strong late game. Braum can still do a lot of work late game, as can Nautilus, but they're a lot easier to get away from when you get towards those late game items. So I think if Nerv can get to sort of 25, so probably 30 to 35 minutes and still be in this sort of situation, they'll be a lot happier and they'll be able to actually start to win out team fights at that point. So I think taking that mid lane tower for Bobaski is actually a vital piece of the puzzle for them to be able to unlock a further push into the base.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. The mid lane towers are kind of almost the key to the map. Certainly towards the mid game, certainly towards the end game. And, you know, Baron now being on the map, mid lane towers are going to be crucial in terms of controlling that objective. And we'll see who's going to be the first one to get it. I wouldn't be surprised to see Bobaski be the one as they do finish off that tower now. Matislaw and Tanky going to be the ones to do that. And now, look at this, immediately heading towards this Baron area. They're going to be looking for vision, looking to make sure that they have control. But right now, it's in favor of Nerv.
I think a lot of this as well comes to whether or not Ruin can fight into Unknown in a separate lane. He's slightly ahead on CS, will be slightly behind in gold because of the 2 towers to 0 statistic on the scorecard. But now he's picked up his Spirit Visage, Mercury Tread, Sunfire. KP's in a strong position. Arrow does come out onto a Chew.
Yeah, so it is going to be Pookie managing to survive that one. A Chew flashes away but gets chased by Tanky. Tanky does have to back away, though. The exhaust denying him the kill, and it does mean 4 summoners, you know. 4 summoners for 1 flash from Tanky, so really not too bad for him, but not going to be able to grab a kill in the end.
No, he's not. And here comes Memento jumping onto Tanky. One more auto takes him down. Mystique's with the Glacial Fissure. Unknown, unable to hit the dredge line. There's a teleport coming in behind them as well as Ruin wants to join the fight from the backside, looking for Matislaw as well, but even that tanky Poppy can't deal with a 5-0 Orianna. This is what I was saying about Nerv, though. They just need to make 1 catch. Tanky did not play that engage anywhere near as well as he would have liked to. And Ruin's going to look for Matislaw.
I've got to say, props to Achu so far this game. 250 CS at 23 minutes is a phenomenal score to be holding for himself. So really, really putting up the numbers and making sure that even though he's not been participating in any of the kills, even though he's not really been a huge factor in the fights, he will be later on in the game because he is well and truly farmed. This tower may well go down, though. Memento on this front line will gonna have to jump away. Good wording there, Joe. I think Unknown forces them back. There's
a worry here for Nerv, though, that they only really have 1 tank. If you look at Bobaski, you've got the Braum and you've got the Nautilus as your tank line, whereas really you've only got a Poppy for Nerv because Karma isn't that tanky at all. It looks like the Karma's actually going up towards Mikhail's first as well instead of going towards Redemption, which I like because of the CC chain. It's something I think in the last game, if we had seen Alien Tech actually get a Mikhail's earlier on or get QSS's earlier on, they would have been able to stop some of that snowball. The risk, the difference between these 2 games, and I just want to point this out quickly, is when you have a Nocturne jumping on your face, you can't cleanse that. When you have a Rengar jumping in and trying to stun lock you with a Bowler Strike, you can cleanse that. So that's the big difference between these 2, and it's why Je Suis Cuss has gone towards this Mikhail's so early on.
I do think one important thing to mention right now is, you know, Bobaski had this phenomenal early game, right? They had 2 fights back-to-back that they won near flawlessly. But now we're, what, 10 minutes further on into the game, nothing else has happened, and the gold gap is still at 2,000. I think it was maybe at 3,000 earlier, though, so slightly shrinking as a fight is going to kick off. It's going to be denied, though, as Unknown manages to chain onto the wall. There is a tower down in that bottom lane, so he should survive that one, but Ruin flashing away up towards the top does get stunned in the end. Crystalline Arrow isn't going to land, though, and Ruin gets Shockwave, only manages to knock away the support, but he is tanky enough. Both top laners walk away, and once again, Memento starts off a Cloud Drake. 3rd time this game.
Memento's built up that Black Cleaver now as well, so we'll be trying to shred through the armor. He's not getting the ability to weave in a lot of auto attacks, though, so it's not going to be helping out too much. We'll be trying to stack that up if he can to aid his Ezreal. It looks like the Ezreal's going up towards the Blade of the Ruin King is that 3rd completed item alongside the Mura Mana and the Iceborne Gauntlet. I think there's a tiny argument here to go Trinity Force over Iceborne just for the pure damage. You can kite okay when you've got the Kha'Zix and the Poppy in front of you, and you've got the Karma next to you as well with the Inspire. Iceborne Gauntlet gives you that ability to control zones in a team fight a little bit better, but Trinity Force does just give you a bit more pure damage, which into a double tank team can be the difference in a fight.
Yeah, that can be the determining factor on whether the fight goes your way. But now with 2 dragons in the pocket of Nerv, and they are slowly but surely reducing this gold gap. We'll see whether they can look towards the late game to pull themselves back into this one. It's certainly not a game that is lost just yet. You know, earlier on I felt like Bob were really going to run away with this one. It certainly felt off the back of those 2 fights that they were going to just continue to be proactive and continue to make things happen, but here we go. Ruin in the top lane will get jumped on here. Does his steadfast presence just a tiny bit too late, and that will mean that he is going to go down on this one. And in fact, the kill goes over towards Tanky. I thought they were going to donate that to Matislaw there, give him a 6th one. I do like the idea, though, that Tanky gets at least 1 kill. Yeah. I like spread the love a little bit.
You need a kill at some point, but the problem is here for Nerv, what did they do when that was happening? You know, the Poppy's incredibly tanky. She was a little bit overextended without good vision coming through, and of course Tanky can come in with that invisibility and just get himself up towards the fight. But Nerv need to be doing something when their top lane tank is being tanky into 3 members. You need to go somewhere else. Because the Cloud Drake went across towards them earlier on, they didn't have the Drake on the cards. If they had been able to take it when they initially tried, there would have been another dragon up, and that would have made it a lot riskier for Bobaski actually to go for that fight in the top lane.
Well, so far 6-2 is the scoreline. Again, that's
a bloodbath. It's a bloodbath, man.
It's been an absolute bloodbath here. 8 kills over 30 minutes. It's been intense, but So far, Nerv yet to really prove their prowess here in the CSQ, and Bobaski certainly coming in swinging, making sure that their name is known by the end of this tournament. We'll see whether they can finish things out at this stage, because, you know, that's one of the things that when you look at the difference between challenger teams and LCS teams, when you look at the difference between challenger teams and regional teams, or everyone in the scene that's trying to get to that challenger level, one of the biggest differences is knowing what to do with the lead, knowing how to then close out a game and guarantee yourself the victory. Could this be a matter that Bobaski, they've managed to get themselves an early lead, but they don't necessarily know how to snowball that further?
They have started to hit some spikes that will allow them to close it out, though. You've got a Void Staff completed on your Orianna now, probably building up towards a Rabadon's Death Cap next. It looks like we might actually have 2 redemptions coming out from them as well, because the Nautilus seems to be building one in the top lane. Arrow does miss. You've got Braum with a redemption as well, so double redemption does give you a huge amount of teamfight prowess. I'm a little bit surprised to see it on a Nautilus, I must admit, but he's decided that giving that little bit extra to his team later on can be quite effective. Hasn't completed it yet, so could of course switch that up for a different item. But I just want to talk actually about the overarching story that comes out of this game as well. You look at Group A, right? Everyone was already calling it the Group of Death. You know, we saw Reddit, we saw Twitter, everyone analysing it, saying that's such a difficult group to get out of. You've got teams like Fnatic Academy and Euronics that we saw earlier on, LDLC, Bobaski, Asus ROG, and Nerv. Everyone thought Nerv would get out. Maybe it would be a little bit of a challenge for them. If Bobaski can put up this performance as well, you've got 5 or... basically the entire group can get top 2.
Yeah, I mean, like, on paper, we were saying Fnatic Academy, Nerv, and then...
probably Euronics.
Euronics as well, that played against Fnatic earlier today. Nerv, honestly, struggling a little bit in the early game, but now we're heading towards 30 minutes. We've moved away from the early game. We're starting to get towards the end of the mid-game, in all honesty, and it's now going to be less about your mechanical play, less about your micro, much more about how your macro is, much more about how you can control the map and take objectives. But Bobaski, they're looking towards a tower in the top lane and proving that macro so far is on point.
As soon as you say it, they show us that they can step up in this section of the game as well. They set up the wave a little while ago, had a big wave pushing in there. Were able to take top turret. They had the Nautilus down towards the bottom side to make sure that if Ruin was down there, he could stop him teleporting in and making a fight. And now they're gaining river control. River control is vital in 624. You create this area, this fog of war where the enemy team is hesitant to step, and it means that you can start to control your rotations a lot better and allows your team just a second of advantage on the enemy.
And now it's going to be Nerv's turn to step in towards this Baron area and try and take control of the vision situation. And this is going to be the next few minutes. Both teams going back and forth. Jungler support duos going in to try and get vision control, try and get vision dominance of the area. I can tell you as well, Nerv, while they do have 2 dragons, it is in fact Cloud Drakes, not Ocean Drakes. So we'll be able to get that overlay updated for you guys. And we'll see who's going to be able to turn it into a 3rd Drake, which will spawn in 30 seconds. And as well, Baron is on the cards for both of these teams. Both easily able to take the Baron. It's just about getting into a situation where that's safe to do.
Ezreal now a Chew, as you said, farming up a Storm, 340 CS now, 32 minutes in, 31 and a bit. Has now finished his Blade of the Ruin King alongside those the Iceborne Gauntlet and the Mirror Mana, so he is in a very strong position on this Ezreal. Ocean Drake is up next, so Nerv will probably be looking up for this as well. Ruin getting the bot lane tower. This is Nerv's macro play coming into effect.
Yeah, and you can tell that a Drake is up because Memento is there. Yeah. He is in love with these Drakes. That is going to be a 3rd one going the way of Nerv. So 2 Clouds and an Ocean now, as well as taking that bottom lane tier 1 tower. So trying to close that gold gap, trying to reduce the lead that BOB have managed to grab for themselves. Tanky actually flashing away, but you cannot flash away from a Syndra. Mystique's now doesn't manage to land his Glacial Fissure, and he's going to go down as well. Last auto coming out from Achu, and now we see the power of Nerv. They've got towards this late game, and their positioning has been superb.
That was just poor positioning from Bobaski as well, though. Because, like, Nerv take the dragon, they get bot lane, and Bobaski just push up way too far in the lane, don't have any vision around that blue side jungle, and it means Nerv can get that flank off. Tanky is not that at the moment. He is squishy enough, even with a giant spell, just to be melted through. And Unleash Power came in, the Unbreakable was on the wrong side of it, which meant that it wasn't able to block up any of that ultimate, and now Nerv can start to push in. This is the point I was worried about with Nerv. They've got so many big carries that all it takes is one person getting caught out from Bobaski for them to start to lose turret after turret.
And this is the challenger scene experience shining through. The team has had, you know, money funneled into them while they've been in the challenger scene. They've got coaching. This is a team that has experience and that has that exposure, and the late game is exactly what we were talking about earlier. Can be very difficult and often can kind of separate the men from the boys, if you will. And now Nerv definitely showing up, but it's about Bobaski right now as they head towards this Baron, and they're just going to start it off straight away. I don't know how wise this necessarily is because Nerv are around. There's nobody unavailable for this fight. Teleports on cooldown, but doesn't really matter. Redemption comes on through. Shockwave doesn't land onto anyone here. Unknown on the tank on the front line, but he's very, very tanky. A lot of damage coming on through as Ruin and Unknown basically seeing who can survive the longest. Both teams, though, back away.
And both of them have pinged out turrets as well. It looks like Nerv might be going towards the mid lane, whereas Bobaski go top. It's not going to be a traditional base race. One thing for Bobaski, I mean, the Shockwave missing was huge.
Yeah.
Because if that had hit any of those 5 members, they were dead. It missed like 4 of them just on the outskirts. Secondly, they used their first redemption quite early on, and they always had a second in the bank. That is incredibly smart thinking from them, because it's very easy to burn both redemptions and be like, okay, now we just have to fight. Nerv were always cautious engaging the fight after that because they knew there was a second redemption. They knew you've got this 400 health gain on any of the opponents that you're trying to dive onto, and it means that Bobaski were able to separate from the fight quite quickly. However, Nerv are going to start the Baron straight away.
Look at this from Nerv. This is a brave play. They saw that people were going to be recalling and immediately used the blast cone to try and take advantage of the situation. Memento, though, nice positioning. Uses Unknown to get out of the pit. Look at him go down, though, as that is going to be a perfect crystalline arrow. Tanky will be dropped as well, though, so they're trading back and forth. Achu and Kaz, both incredibly low, but as are Unknown, and so is Pookie. He drops. Now, Matislaw, he's exhausted and will get shut down as well. This is going the way of Nerv by the looks of things. Unknown trying to escape. Fantastic steadfast presence from Ruin. There's another one. 4 for 1 in the end for Nerv, and they are rewarded with the big purple worm.
That they are. Achu was able to dodge around the back of that fight. Matislaw just couldn't quite take him out. Suno was huge as well, and Mystiques wasn't there from the start. He arrived right at the end of the fight. He had no impact in it whatsoever. Still has Glacial Fissure here. Achu's going to try and jump on him just to stop him from interfering with the Baron. Gets the ace, and they'll turn their eyes back. And this is what Nerv can do, you know? They can get right back into this game, just taking a couple of turrets, getting that gold lead for themselves. They're now ahead in gold for the first time in the game. They've got the Baron buff, they've got great poke potential with the Ezreal and with the Syndra underneath the turret, and they've got the Karma if they ever need to disengage. They are in a superb spot to close out this game.
Yeah, and now 4,000 gold ahead of their opponents. Not a huge lead considering with 35 minutes in, but it's enough. And with how they've been playing in the last couple of minutes, how they've been positioning around the map and, you know, correctly prioritizing objectives, they have really managed to kind of show their prowess. They had a bit of a rocky early game, but they've managed to make it through. And so far, Matislaw, since that kill in the top lane, he's not been able to achieve anything. His shockwaves haven't really had enough impact. And I just want to go back to that original kind of Baron fight where we saw the 2 tanks just slowly but surely getting whittled away. I think one of the biggest factors there in both teams just disengaging was Matislaw. He missed his shockwave, and while that means he didn't get a kill, it also means that basically BOB's entire team fight is kind of thrown away with it.
That it is. They just can't do anything. It's one of the weaknesses as well when you have all of your kills funneled onto one member early on. Like, the enemy team knows if they play around that single player, they can win the game, and that's exactly what Nerv did. They just said, okay, we'll just farm for ages. Just keep farming.
Farm for ages, and then we'll get other items as well.
None of them have got that, though, which is slightly sad. But yeah, they just farmed for as long as they could. Suno just kept the lane pushed up, didn't roam, didn't have to leave lane, just like, yeah, I'm just going to push it up, push it up. Your Orianna can't do anything because she has to stay in mid lane to try and stop us. And now we're seeing the dividends come out from that, especially because of how well they farmed. You know, Achu, as you said, farming up a Storm, Ruin doing the same in the top lane as well. And it looks like Nerv now here with the 4-1 split. should be able to at least get one of these inhibitor towers.
Yeah, I've got to say this top lane is going to be a lot more exciting to watch than the bottom lane as they slap each other with those wet noodles and basically do 0 damage. But Ruin has managed to get a bit of an opportunity to do some damage to this tower. To be honest, I think he could keep hitting it and just ignore the tower
0
completely.
damage poppy
he is
build.
So tanky at this point. I mean, as is Unknown, but the rest of BOB coming on down, and I think Ruins maybe spent a little bit too much time down on this bottom half of the map and will be punished for it.
He still has GA though, so what Nerv have to do right now is just say, okay, he's dead, we'll leave him, he can delay for as long as possible, he's got GA, they get a turret, they're going to get mid lane inhibitor tower here as well. This is what we didn't see Bobaski doing earlier on. They didn't capitalize on their tank buying them time. Nerv have done that, arrow comes out though.
But do they get punished? Bobaski, this is your opportunity to win the game. Sumo will get caught up. The shockwave, again, not really as effective as they want, but it doesn't matter. Suno will go down in the end, but he managed to get one onto Tanky first. It's 9-10 right now, and definitely could go either way.
Welcome to Syndra, lads. That's why she's still prioritized. That's why she's still S tier. It's why we still see her picked up in so many games. Zhonya's Morello, Void Staff Royalized. Thank you very much. Goodbye, Tanky. Tanky does only have the Dead Man's Plate and now is building a little bit of magic resist as well.
Yeah,
so
immediately Negatron like, I don't want that again.
It's just like, please, don't do it to me again. I would have actually liked to see something like a Hex Drinker come out from him, just because it gives you a little bit more early game pressure. Instead of the Black Cleaver, maybe go Hex Drinker first. It's a tough decision because Suno wasn't really in that position earlier on. It's looking back at it, perhaps slightly different itemization could have worked out better for him, as well as that I think the Rengar didn't really have the impact in the early game they would have liked him to.
And I mean, one of the things as well is you've got to consider in that early game, they were maybe just thinking, we're just going to run away with this one. Like they were 6-0. It certainly felt to me like they were going to run away with the game at that point, but now, with a mid lane inhibitor down, Nerv are feeling pretty fantastic. They've already got 3 dragons and a 4th one has just spawned. It is going to be that Elder Drake, and we'll see whether that is going to be a huge factor here. Who's going to be able to grab that one? Nice true shot there. It's just going to mean that the mid lane will be pushing, if it wasn't already, with the supers in favor of Nerv. And now with Ruin pushing away in that top lane as well. This is going to be a lot of pressure coming the way of BOB.
Has got the ZZ Rot to push up this wave as well. We'll just try and get as much of a push going on as possible. Counter ZZ Rot has come out from Unknown, so he's going to try and counter, push it out in the opposite direction. But Bobaski trying to gain vision around this Elder Drake, I don't think it actually means too much for Nerv. Double Cloud and an Ocean, getting the Elder there. It's more about just getting the true damage.
They'll be quick though. They'll be so quick.
Gotta go fast. You can paint some go faster smites. That's true, caught out!
Yeah, it does manage to Arcane Shift back though, and with a cleanse as well, will be able to pull himself to safety. Suno now on this front line will flash as well, and in the meantime, bursts Tanky down. There's a double kill coming into the hands of Suno, and they're looking for more. Nerv might just have this game if they can finish off the fight. There's a jump forward from Pimento. He's looking for the resets, and he's looking to finish off the fight. Here comes Unknown, but he's all on his own. There's a double kill for the Insect, and that is going to be a 15-9 scoreline, and Nerv surely pushing for the win.
Yeah, you have to think they'll close it out from here. Great play by them, and we talked about that Mikhail's. I pointed it out as soon as it was picked up. I said this is early, but this is why they're doing it. And look at how well it played for them there. I know you've got QSS on the Ezreal as well, but being able to get past that second stun lock is vital to keep your carries alive.
Yeah.
Suno did a great job killing out Tanky as well, but this is going to be the Nexus falling.
It certainly is. Nerv managing to hold their nerve, excuse the pun, against Bobaski. They lost out in the early game, but they managed to bring it home in the end and go 1-0 up in the Challenger Series qualifier against the Polish regional team. Phenomenal play from them, and I've got to say, their late game prowess was fantastic. Bobaski had a fantastic early game, but not quite able to keep up to the ex-Challenger team.
It's what we were talking about in sort of when you said that mid lane turret wasn't so much of a priority. At that point, that's when Bobaski needed to be pushing. That's when they needed to be trying to get those team fights to start, because as you got later into the game, Nerv just had too much utility in their whole team to be able to shut down Bobaski.
So I think, like you said, there's a couple of really important points here. The major important point that I kind of noticed as this game progressed, and it became more and more apparent as these team fights transpired, is you have a composition. Although the Rengar was in some ways useful, right? Really, you'd loaded all your eggs into a couple of baskets, and those baskets were your Ashe and your Orianna. You're going up against a Kha'Zix, Ezreal, who's got insane single target damage, and the Syndra, who's got insane single target damage. You can almost guarantee, unless the team fight goes perfectly and the shockwave hits multiple people through a great ball delivery system, one of those major late game carries is going to die in some way, shape or form, right? Some way, shape or form, one of those carries was going to die. And once one of those carries dies, you suddenly, like Munch said, you lose a large portion of what makes your composition good. And you saw that quite a few times. Kha'Zix actually, although he struggled in the early game like we expected he would, you know, if you can snowball against a Kha'Zix, he really does struggle without the gold input. As the game progressed, Kha'Zix did what Kha'Zix does best. He is a single target isolation killer. Yep. And if you can get one of those targets killed off, that's where you'll really start to see that composition fall apart from Bobaski, and Nerv finally managed to do that towards the end of the game. Absolutely.
Well, congratulations to Nerv. We're going to go into a quick respite for ourselves to regain some voice, I think, for the next game coming up. But before we do go, make sure to head over to esl.pm/Alienware. We have a new link for you where you can go and grab yourselves some Alienware tech. They have fantastic computers that you guys can get your hands on, and I believe they've got some sales going on right now, so head over there ASAP. But we're going to be back in just a few minutes for the next game, which I can tell you is going to be Team Forge up against Tricked Esports, the Nordic Regional versus our 5th place Challenger team. Should be a good one, so make sure to tune in just a few minutes' time.